In this particular video, we're going to show you how a custom AFO is made. We're going to start with the casting process. And one of the things that we do in the casting process, we first start by protecting the skin. And we're going to go down here and I'm going to show you how we're protecting this patient's skin. Okay, so an ankle-foot orthosis actually comes up to a point that's basically on this part of the leg. There are some that are made on a shorter level, but there are disadvantages to that. But we're going to show you the casting process today. Don't need all this. So we're going to use a fiberglass-like material that's in here. This is going to take the shape. It sets up relatively quickly. It has an exothermic reaction that happens when it comes into contact with water. So that just in general means that it's going to start to harden the moment it comes into contact with water. It's going to expedite the process. I suppose if I left this out, it would get hardened by itself, but the water helps it go by much faster. We're also going to use a tube right here. This tube is going to be wrapped inside of the fiberglass, and the whole point of that is you never want to cut the patient. So that's why we have our tube here. There's no guessing involved. You don't have to worry about any of that. I do find that it does get quieter around the time that you cut off a cast, but this is the whole point of a tube like this. Lastly, we'll just use our cutting knife and go right down the tube. Okay, so I just got this wet. You might be able to see a little bit of the water on the casting material. And instead of just putting this right on the patient's skin like this, we have to think ahead. And so what we're going to do is, can you hold that for me at the very top? We're going to start to cast the foot and the leg here, below the knee. This is for an ankle-foot orthosis, a custom-made device. So if you start thinking about it as we do this, there's a certain volume and shape here. It's all going to get encapsulated inside this impression that we're taking, and the patient's only going to benefit from that as we make the brace later. So we're just going to wrap up like this. I'm going to bring it down a little bit. But you can start to see how important this is. The ankle right here has a certain shape to it. The heel has a shape. We just captured that shape. And we're going to keep going here. Now we're getting the midfoot shape, the size, the width, all of that gets incorporated into the cast. Okay, so sometimes you have a little extra, which is totally fine. So we're just going to work our way back up. Certain things pop out like this in the back, so I'm going to try to encapsulate that inside of our cast. There are other sizes of fiberglass available, and perhaps for a child you might use a 3-inch, or if you're casting someone's head, for example, you don't need a 5-inch always. You might use a different size. Just different body parts are different sizes, so you don't always need to use the 5-inch like I just used. So now what I'm going to try to do is we're going to get our foot down flat, and I'm going to try to get to our 90-degree position. So I'm going to come back like this. Okay? And when a person stands, actually their knee, if I was going to draw like a plumb line here straight down, it would fall on the inside of their foot. And I'll explain more of that here shortly in the video, but what I want to do is bring the knee in, because nobody stands with their knee way out here like that. So I'm going to bring the knee in. I'm going to add a little pressure because we're going to simulate what it's like for someone to stand with this on. And so I'm aiming right here. I'm aiming straight down to the inside of the foot. We want to flatten this out a little bit. We look for certain things, like is the toe wanting to curl in? Not on everyone, but sometimes a person's foot will swoop in. It'll invert or supinate, and they'll have or something called a toe in. So we want to help to correct that just as much as they can comfortably have. Now, as we look at this, I try to get to a 90-degree in the cast. However, that's not always, you're not always, down to the certain degree. So what I'll do is we can correct that later in the modification phase, and we'll show you all that important stuff. But this is our cast. We've captured her heel, her foot, all the nuances of the shape and the size, the calf, etc. Okay? This is an AFO, so we don't need to worry about the knee and encapsulating that in the cast. So we're just going to cut down the tube. You can also use a cast saw, but that makes a lot more noise. So you can start to see why the importance of a tube is so critical. In days past, a lot of people would use plaster, and there are a few people out there that still use it today, but fiberglass, as you can see, in the few minutes that we took the cast, went from a soft material to something that's hardened and taken a certain shape, and it won't easily be lost, the shape. So what I'm going to do is, it's not yet ready to take off, so we're going to use our scissors, pull up and away from the skin, and we use the scissors right here with a rounded edge so we know we're not going to cut anybody. And we're going to pull up and away and take this whole thing off. It's a lot the same as a casting material that's used if someone broke their foot or their ankle and a cast would be left on, but this is only used for an impression. You can see all the detail here in the foot, etc. There we go. So that's a cast for an AFO, for someone perhaps that has foot drop or something like that.